From the moment we open our eyes, we step onto a stage, already set for us, curtains drawn, audience hushed, spotlight burning. We learn our parts quickly: the dutiful son, the diligent student, the ambitious professional, the patriotic citizen. Yet behind every role hides a face we rarely let the world see. We trim its edges when the boss strolls by, smooth its wrinkles when a first date walks in, fortify its confidence when we stand before a crowd. By the time we have mastered these adjustments, the boundary between mask and self feels paper thin. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli gazed upon the grand pageant of Renaissance Italy: dukes plotting over banquets, cardinals whispering in cathedrals, merchants balancing loyalty and profit, and recognized a truth: we still resist. Real power flowers, not in brute strength, but in the art of controlled illusion. To govern men, you must first govern their perception. The sword persuades one heart at a time. The mask persuades thousands at once. Tonight we invite you into the dim corridors of Florentine palaces, through the blood-slicked hallways of Cesare Borgia's Romania, and onward to today's televised rallies and algorithmic echo chambers. Along the way, we will unmask the techniques Machiavelli admired, and expose how they still script our politics, our workplaces, even our private relationships. So dim the lights, silence your notifications, and listen closely. Because if, as Machiavelli insists, men judge more by the eye than by the hand, then the eye that matters most is your own, trained to spot the velvet disguise before it snares you, or before you choose to wear it yourself. Section 1. The eyes of the world. In every society, ancient or modern, democratic or tyrannical, tribal or technological, there exists a kind of invisible stage. It's not built of wood or stone, but of perception, belief, and spectacle. On this stage, the powerful do not always speak the truth. Instead, they perform. Some people live their entire lives in the audience. They sit quietly, clapping when told, laughing when prompted, booing on cue. They consume appearances as if they were reality, and perhaps, for them, it is. Others stand in the spotlight: leaders, celebrities, revolutionaries reciting the scripts handed to them by history, society, or necessity. They perform acts of courage, compassion, or cruelty, depending on what the moment demands. Their words are memorized, their gestures rehearsed. But even they often don't write the play. No, the true authors are behind the curtain. They're the unseen hands that orchestrate the drama, pulling strings, changing costumes, lighting the stage to highlight one story and shadow another. These individuals understand something essential, something cold and unsettling. People do not follow truth, they follow appearances. This was one of Machiavelli's most piercing insights. He did not celebrate deception out of malice or moral blindness. He celebrated it because he understood human nature in its rawest form. He had seen the failure of noble ideals and the triumph of cunning. He had watched truth fall to its knees, while a beautiful lie marched past it on a parade float. To him, reality was often powerless unless it wore a costume. A noble cause without the right presentation was ignored. A good leader without the image of strength was dismissed. A fact, no matter how important, meant little if it lacked drama or spectacle. But appearances, they could move mountains. A speech could silence a rebellion. A crown could mask incompetence. A well-timed tear could win an empire. Machiavelli was not fooled by the grandeur of ideals. He knew that in the theater of power, image was everything, and in that theater, power always wears a mask. Section 2. The anatomy of a mask. What is a mask, really? It's more than a cover for the face. It is an instrument, a psychological weapon, a language all its own. It tells the world who you are, or, rather, who you want the world to believe you are. Some masks dazzle with nobility. Others terrify with authority. Some comfort with familiarity. Others confuse and bewilder. But all of them serve one purpose: control. Control over perception. Control over narrative. Control over destiny. The mask, unlike the face, is not born. It is crafted, piece by piece, gesture by gesture, word by word. A smile at the right time, a furrowed brow during a meeting. A carefully curated story about your past. Each choice becomes a thread in the fabric of the illusion. And Machiavelli, he was a tailor of such illusions. He understood that morality is judged not by what one does in private, but by how one appears in public. He knew that people see what they want to see and, more importantly, what they're allowed to see. You may love justice. You may act with integrity. But if you appear weak, hesitant, or naive, the world will step over you without remorse. Lions do not concern themselves with the kindness of sheep. And history does not weep for the forgotten. That is why Machiavelli taught rulers to master their masks. If you must lie, lie not casually, but like an artist. With precision, with flair. Let your lie paint a vision of greatness. If you must appear kind, let your kindness shine so brightly that no one dares look behind it. And if cruelty is necessary, let it be swift, spectacular, and hidden behind a curtain of necessity. The mask is not the opposite of the self. It is a weapon to protect the self, a shield in a world that respects armor more than honesty. The mask is not treachery. It is survival. It is strategy. It is the price one pays to be seen, heard, and obeyed. Section 3. The Prince Behind the Curtain. In all of Machiavelli's writings, one name rises above the rest: a man who, in his eyes, embodied the perfect union of appearance and action. Cesare Borgia. To the public, Borgia was a vision of strength and elegance. His face wore the smile of diplomacy. His words dripped with noble rhetoric. He played the role of the ideal ruler, measured, just, generous when needed. He kissed babies. He blessed the people. He bowed to the Pope. But that was only the mask. Behind the curtain, in the shadows where no applause could reach, lived another man entirely. Cold, calculating, fearless. A man who understood that mercy could be mimicked and justice manipulated. He saw threats not as problems to negotiate, but as weeds to be uprooted. He did not simply silence his enemies. He made their silence echo with fear. There is a story Machiavelli recounts with chilling admiration. Borgia once invited his rebellious captains to a feast of reconciliation. He smiled. He offered wine. He forgave them publicly, ceremoniously. Then, one by one, as they toasted to peace, he had them strangled in the night. Another tale speaks of enemies granted pardon in the public square. Flowers were thrown. Tears were shed. But behind closed doors, the wine was poisoned, the pardon a prelude to execution. And yet the people adored him. Why? Because they didn't see the poison. They saw the pardon. Because he controlled not just events, but the interpretation of those events. Because he understood something timeless. The public doesn't care about reality. They care about the story. And Cesare Borgia told a magnificent story. This, Machiavelli believed, was leadership in its highest form, not because it was moral, but because it was effective. Not because it was honest, but because it worked. To Machiavelli, Borgia was not a villain. He was a mirror reflecting what power looks like when stripped of illusion, only to create an even better one. Section 4. The Dual Animal, Fox and Lion. In The Prince, Machiavelli writes, one of his most enduring lines, an idea so sharp and primal it still echoes through centuries of political thought. A prince must be both a lion and a fox. These two creatures are more than metaphors. They are the twin pillars of power, force and finesse, aggression and calculation, fear and charm. The lion, with its roar, demands respect through dominance. The fox, with its silence, navigates traps through intelligence. One conquers territory, the other avoids cages. But Machiavelli's genius was not in naming the animals. It was in insisting that the wise ruler must embody both and know precisely when to switch. Rely on strength alone, and you may crush enemies today, but be outmaneuvered tomorrow. Rely only on cunning, and you may manipulate brilliantly, but be overpowered when brute force is needed. The great leader dances between both worlds, seamlessly. And what makes this possible? The mask. The mask is what lets the prince roar like a lion before his army, and whisper like a fox in the halls of diplomacy. It's what allows him to show mercy while preparing for war, to declare peace while drawing the sword behind his back. Without the mask, these contradictions would be seen as weakness. But with it, they become strategy. In war, you must appear fearless even if you feel the tremble of mortality in your bones. In negotiation, you must appear sincere even if you plan betrayal the moment the ink dries. In times of peace, you must appear compassionate even as you prepare contingency plans for the collapse of civility. And this is not hypocrisy. It is survival. It is adaptation. In a world where transparency is punished and naivete devoured, only the adaptable endure. Only those who can act in shadows while appearing to stand in the light can shape the course of history. Machiavelli wasn't telling us to become animals. He was telling us to become more than human. to evolve into something capable of wielding both instinct and intelligence, without being destroyed by either. Section 5. The Modern Prince. But what about today? That's the natural question. Surely, we live in a world of openness now, don't we? A world of progress, of transparency, of endless access to truth. Surely the Machiavellian age is over. Absolutely not. In fact, it's only just begun. Because the modern prince no longer addresses a court of nobles. He speaks to millions, across screens, across borders, across time zones. His every gesture is streamed, clipped, filtered, interpreted, and judged. Not over months, but in milliseconds. The stage has grown, and with it, the performance has intensified. The prince today must master not just rhetoric, but optics, algorithms, hashtags. He must not only appear competent, he must trend. His mask must be likable, camera-friendly, brand-safe. And this doesn't just apply to heads of state. It applies to everyone. CEOs parade through press conferences with masks of benevolence, pledging sustainability while polluting oceans behind the curtain of quarterly profit. Politicians cry on camera, invoking empathy, while passing laws written in the ink of lobbyists. Influencers curate lives so perfectly filtered they seem divine, while behind closed doors they battle self-hate, addiction, or depression. And then there's you. Yes, you too. Wear a mask. When you force a smile in a meeting you hate. When you post a filtered version of your life, to gain likes from strangers. When you agree silently, just to avoid conflict. When you say I'm fine while screaming inside. We are all, in one form or another, actors now. Machiavelli's prince has become us all, not because we're evil, not because we seek domination, but because approval, security, love and survival are still shaped by perception. And perception demands performance. The tragedy is not that we wear masks. The tragedy is that we must. Section 6. When masks become cages. But here lies the quiet horror, the slow corrosion of the soul. If you wear the mask too long, it stops being a mask. At first, you control it. You put it on, take it off, sharpen it for effect. You tell yourself it's a tool of necessary deception. But then something happens. Slowly, without noticing, you begin to forget how your real face looked. You lose touch with your original voice. The mask begins to grow roots. And when that happens, it's no longer performance, it's possession. You play the role not out of survival, but out of habit. You smile not to deceive, but because you've forgotten how not to. You lie because the truth feels foreign. The persona becomes your prison. And this is what Machiavelli warned against, not explicitly, but through implication. The mask is only powerful when you control it. The moment it controls you, you are no longer a prince. You are a puppet. This is the silent epidemic of the modern world. People don't just lose authenticity, they lose the memory of authenticity. They trade their essence for applause, their truth for survival, and then wonder why they feel empty after being liked by thousands. So we must ask, urgently, do we wear our masks as tools, or have they become our faces? Are we the authors of our appearance or merely its actors? Can we still find ourselves beneath the layers of image we've built? Because power without self is hollow. Influence without identity is noise. And if we lose who we are, in the pursuit of who we must appear to be, then no mask, no matter how beautiful, can hide the emptiness inside. Section 7. The Ethics of Illusion. Can a masked world still be moral? Can truth survive when wrapped in velvet lies? Machiavelli forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. He pulls no punches, refuses comfort, and insists that there is often a profound tension between ethics and effectiveness. In his view, a ruler who always chooses what is morally right may find himself powerless in a world that rewards illusion. It is not enough to be good, he says, you must also appear to be good, and that appearance, crafted skillfully, may matter more than the truth it hides. To some, this sounds like manipulation, like surrendering our souls to the shadows. But to Machiavelli, it was survival. Imagine a prince who refuses to deceive, who speaks only hard truths, who walks uncloaked among wolves. What becomes of him? He may be noble, yes, he may be remembered in stories, but his kingdom will burn. Yet Machiavelli was not calling for blind deceit. He warned of something even more dangerous. When the mask is no longer worn for duty, but for ego. When the lie is no longer a shield but a mirror, in which we admire ourselves too long. Because when deception becomes habit, when we forget that the mask was meant to serve others, not ourselves, it begins to corrupt rather than protect. So, the answer is not to live without masks. That's impossible. The world demands roles. It demands faces that reassure, words that soothe, appearances that stabilize. But what we must do, is choose our masks consciously. With intention. With integrity. Let the mask serve a purpose higher than vanity. Let it protect the innocent, not just the insecure. Let it build bridges, not walls. Let it reflect strategy, not fear. Ask yourself, honestly, does this mask protect others or manipulate them for my gain? Am I wearing it out of fear of rejection or because I'm leading others through chaos? Is there a moment, just one, where I can take it off, and still be seen, and still be safe? These are not easy questions. But they are the only ones worth asking in a world where illusion rules. Because the moment we stop asking them, is the moment the mask stops being a tool, starts becoming our face. Section 8. Power in the Age of Illusion. Once, the masks were literal, crafted from gold, leather, silk. Worn in courts and carnivals, they were symbols of seduction and strategy. Today, they are digital. Code replaces cloth. Filters replace expression. Algorithms shape emotion. Our modern princes are no longer seated on thrones, they are seated behind screens. They smile with polished veneers, speak in rehearsed compassion, and bathe their power in just the right lighting. Politicians tweet empathy, while signing laws that harm the voiceless. Corporations wrap themselves in flags rainbow, green, patriotic, while exploiting the very people they claim to represent. Influencers whisper wellness into microphones while drowning in narcissism. Yet the game is the same. The rules haven't changed. Perception is still currency. And power still flows to those who can perform it best. Machiavelli would recognize this age instantly. He would not be surprised. He might even smile. Because he knew that perception is not the opposite of truth. It is the stage upon which truth fights to be heard. To resist, then, is not to shout louder. It is to understand the performance. To see where the script was written. To know who wrote it. To know why. If you wish to lead in this age not as a tyrant, but as a guide, then, you must learn this ancient craft, reborn in modern form. Learn to read masks. Learn to unmask others gently, without shame. And yes, learn to wear your own with wisdom. Because whether you stand in politics, business, art, or even love, if you do not shape perception, perception will shape you. And if you do not know when you're acting, you will forget who you are. Section 9. The choice that defines you. At some point, we all stand alone before the mirror. Some of us admire what we see, the confident grin, the steady gaze, the curated life. We see the character we've crafted, the brand, the self-made myth. Others look deeper and see the cost. The fatigue in the eyes. The weariness of performance. The ache of always being on. But the wisest, they see both. They understand the dance between appearance and essence. They know that the mask can be a tool but never a substitute for the soul. Machiavelli never asked us to become liars. He wasn't encouraging the loss of virtue, he was demanding awareness. He wanted us to look directly into the forces that shape this world: power, fear, ambition, perception, and say, I see you. I know what you are, and I will not be your puppet. Because in a world where truth is often punished, and performance is often rewarded, the most radical act is to remain conscious, not naive, not cynical, but awake. To know when to play the part and when to step off the stage. To know when a mask is saving your life and when it's suffocating your spirit. That is the difference between control and captivity. Between illusion and identity. And that is the choice that defines you. Section 10. Final words from the shadow of Florence. So remember these words, not from a king, not from a priest, but from a man who walked the bitter alleys of politics and survived to write its truths. Real power does not come from removing the mask. Anyone can do that. Real power comes from knowing exactly why you wear it. From mastering its weight without becoming hollow inside. From playing the part without losing the plot. Wear your mask wisely. Craft it with purpose. Let it be armor when needed, and a mirror when truth is near. But never forget the one who made it. Never forget who's behind it. Because when all the applause dies down, when the spotlight fades, and when the stage is silent, you remain. You, not the mask. You, not the performance. You, not the illusion. And if you know who you are when no one is watching, then no one can take your power away. Not kings, not tyrants, not even history itself.